Have you ever been so sure you knew what was best for someone you love, only to realize you might be the one standing in the way of their happiness? I'm Sarah Callahan, and this is the story of how I nearly destroyed my brother's chance at true love, and my own humanity in the process. It was a sweltering July afternoon at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. The air shimmered with heat, carrying the scent of sun-baked asphalt and the distant echo of artillery fire from the training grounds. I stood among a sea of dress uniforms, feeling out of place in my civilian clothes. It had been years since I'd seen my baby brother Nathan, and this military gala was supposed to be our grand reunion. My eyes scanned the crowd, searching for that familiar face. When I finally spotted him, my heart skipped a beat, but not for the reason I expected. There was Nathan, resplendent in his uniform, medals gleaming on his chest, but it wasn't his military bearing that caught me off guard. It was the woman by his side, her hand intertwined with his, also wearing the uniform of a U.S. Army officer. She was stunning, with rich brown skin that seemed to glow even under the harsh fluorescent lights, and eyes that sparkled with warmth and intelligence. The way they looked at each other, you'd think they were the only two people in the room. "Sarah," Nathan called out, his voice brimming with excitement as he spotted me. "Come meet Alisha." In that moment, something inside me shifted. A voice in my head whispered, "This isn't right. They don't belong together." And just like that, I made a choice. A choice that would spiral into a tornado of lies, heartbreak, and near tragedy. A choice that would test the very foundations of love, family, and everything I thought I knew about myself. Now, I know what you're thinking. Who am I to decide who belongs together? Stick with me, because this isn't just a love story. It's about the blurred lines between protection and control, the painful journey of challenging your own beliefs, and the power of love to overcome even the most stubborn of hearts. As I approached, Alisha extended her hand, her smile warm and inviting. "It's great to finally meet you, Sarah," she said, her voice as smooth as honey. "Nathan's told me so much about you." I took her hand, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. "All good things, I hope." Nathan laughed, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. "Only the best, sis. Alicia's a combat medic in my unit. Can you believe my luck?" I watched them, the way they gravitated towards each other, the love radiating between them like a tangible force. And in that moment, I made a vow to myself. This wouldn't last. I wouldn't let it. That night, as I lay in my hotel room, sleep eluded me. The air conditioner hummed, its rhythmic drone a counterpoint to my racing thoughts. Images flashed through my mind, Nathan and Alisha, hand in hand in their uniforms, our parents' surprised faces, the whispers and stares from our neighbors back home. I told myself I was protecting Nathan, protecting our family. But was I really? Or was I just afraid of change, of a world that was evolving faster than I could keep up? Little did I know, my decision that night would set in motion a chain of events that would nearly destroy everything I held dear. It would push me to the brink of losing my brother forever, and force me to confront some uncomfortable truths about myself. So, dear reader, I invite you to judge me. Call me misguided, call me controlling, call me whatever you want. But before you do, ask yourself this. Have you ever been so sure you were right, only to realize you've never been more wrong? Have you ever had to unravel your entire belief system and build it back up from scratch? This is my story of love, misunderstanding, and the long, painful road to redemption. It's not pretty, it's not easy, but it's real. And who knows, maybe by the end of it, you'll see a bit of yourself in me, the good, the bad, and the uncomfortably honest. Are you ready to take this journey with me? Because once we start, there's no turning back. The truth, as they say, will set you free. But first, it might break your heart. The days following the military gala blurred together in a haze of forced smiles and barely concealed tension. I extended my stay at Fort Bragg, telling Nathan I wanted to spend more time with him, but we both knew the real reason. I was on a mission, and that mission was to break up my brother and Alisha. It started small. A casual comment here, a pointed question there. "Don't you think it's a bit soon to be so serious, Nathan?" I'd ask, my voice dripping with faux concern. "I mean, you've only known each other for what, 6 months?" Nathan would brush off my comments with a laugh, but I could see the seeds of doubt beginning to take root. "Sarah, when you know, he'd say, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes that wasn't there before. I turned my attention to Alisha next. She was harder to crack, her warmth and genuine kindness making it difficult for me to find fault. But I was determined, and desperation makes for a creative opponent. "So, Alisha," I said one evening, as we sat on the porch, the cicadas providing a rhythmic backdrop to our conversation. "Nathan tells me you're from California. That's quite a ways from North Carolina. Don't you miss your family?" Alicia's smile faltered for just a moment. "Of course I do," she replied. "But the army is my family too, and Nathan, well, he's become my home." I nodded sympathetically, but inside I was grinning. I'd found my angle. "It must be hard though," I pressed, "being so far from your roots. And Nathan, he's such a hometown boy. I can't imagine him ever leaving Fort Bragg, let alone moving across the country." I watched as my words hit their mark. Alicia's brow furrowed, and I could almost see the gears turning in her head. It was cruel, I know that now, but at the time, I felt justified in my actions. As the days wore on, I became bolder in my manipulations. I'd accidentally mention Nathan's ex-girlfriends, all local girls who still lived in town. I'd reminisce about our childhood, pointedly excluding Alisha from these conversations. I even went as far as to suggest that our parents might not approve of their relationship, knowing full well that Nathan valued our family's opinion above all else. The strain began to show. Nathan and Alicia's easy laughter became forced, their loving glances tinged with worry. They started to argue more, little spats that would escalate quickly. I'd often find Nathan alone, staring off into the distance with a troubled expression. "Everything okay, little brother?" I'd ask, feigning innocence. He'd shake his head, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know, Sarah. Things with Alisha, they're complicated." "Relationships often are," I'd reply, patting his hand, "especially when there are so many differences to overcome." But as I watched my plan unfold, something unexpected happened. The more I tried to drive them apart, the more I saw the depth of their love for each other. Despite the arguments, despite the doubts I'd planted, they always found their way back to each other. It was like watching two magnets, constantly drawn together, no matter how hard I tried to keep them apart. One night, I overheard them talking in hushed tones on the back porch. I crept closer, hidden in the shadows, my heart pounding. "I don't know what's changed, Nathan," Alisha was saying, her voice thick with emotion. "It's like ever since we came here, everything's different. Are you having second thoughts about us?" There was a long pause, and I held my breath, waiting for Nathan's response. This was it, I thought. This was the moment I'd been working towards. But then Nathan spoke, and his words shattered my world. "Alisha, loving you is the easiest, most natural thing I've ever done. Everything else, the distance, the cultural differences, what other people might think, that's all just noise. You're my home, remember, no matter where we are." I stumbled back, feeling as though I'd been punched in the gut. In that moment, I realized the magnitude of what I'd been trying to destroy. This wasn't just some fleeting romance. This was real, deep, earth-shattering love. As I lay in bed that night, sleep once again eluding me, I faced an uncomfortable truth. I wasn't protecting Nathan. I was the threat. I was the one causing him pain, causing them both pain. And for what? Because I was afraid of change. Because I couldn't see past my own narrow view of the world. But I wasn't ready to give up just yet. No, I had one more card to play. One final, desperate attempt to save my brother from a love I didn't understand. Little did I know, my next move would set in motion a chain of events that would change all of our lives forever. The morning dawned crisp and clear, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing inside me. I had made my decision. Today was the day I would play my final card, the ace up my sleeve that I was certain would drive the final wedge between Nathan and Alisha. Looking back now, I can hardly believe the depths of my desperation, the lengths I was willing to go to, tear apart what I now know was a beautiful love story. I cornered Nathan just as he was leaving for his morning PT. "We need to talk," I said, my voice low and urgent. "It's about Alisha." Nathan's face immediately clouded with concern. "What about her?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the lie I was about to tell. I saw her with someone else last night, another soldier. They looked intimate." The color drained from Nathan's face. "What? No, that's impossible. Alisha wouldn't—" "I'm sorry, Nathan," I interrupted, forcing my voice to crack with emotion. "I wish it wasn't true, but I saw what I saw. Maybe she's not who you think she is." I watched as doubt and pain warred in my brother's eyes. For a moment, I felt a flicker of guilt, but I quickly squashed it. This was for his own good, I told myself. Nathan stumbled away without another word, leaving me standing there, feeling hollow despite my perceived victory. I didn't know it then, but I had just set in motion a series of events that would haunt me for years to come. Later that day, I overheard the explosive argument between Nathan and Alisha. Their voices carried through the thin walls of the base housing, filled with pain and confusion. "How could you accuse me of that?" Alisha cried, her voice breaking. "After everything we've been through." "I don't know what to believe anymore," Nathan shouted back. "Everything's been so messed up since we got here. Maybe this is a sign." My heart raced as I listened. This was what I wanted, wasn't it? So why did I feel so sick? The argument ended with a slamming door and the screech of tires as Nathan peeled out of the driveway. I watched from the window as his car disappeared down the street, driving far too fast for the residential area. Hours passed, and Nathan didn't return. Night fell, and still, no word. The sick feeling in my stomach had grown into full-blown panic. I was just about to call the MPs when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Sarah Callahan?" a grave voice asked. "Yes," I replied, my mouth suddenly dry. "This is Sergeant Miller from the Fort Bragg Emergency Department. I'm calling about your brother, Nathan Callahan. There's been an accident." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I don't remember much of what the sergeant said after that. Words like critical condition, internal bleeding, and induced coma floated around me, but I couldn't grasp them. All I could think was, I did this. This is my fault. I rushed to the hospital in a daze, barely aware of my surroundings. When I arrived, I found Alisha already there, her face streaked with tears, her uniform rumpled as if she'd slept in it. Our eyes met across the sterile waiting room, and in that moment, I saw not the rival I had fabricated in my mind, but a woman desperately in love with my brother. A woman who, despite my best efforts to drive her away, had stayed by his side. As we sat there, waiting for news, the weight of what I had done crashed down upon me. My brother was fighting for his life because of my lies, my manipulation, my inability to accept his happiness. In that sterile, white-walled waiting room, with the rhythmic beeping of machines in the background and the acrid smell of disinfectant in the air, I realized the true cost of my actions. And I knew, with a certainty that shook me to my core, that when Nathan pulled through this, things would never be the same again. The rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor was the only sound in Nathan's hospital room. I sat there, hour after hour, watching my brother's chest rise and fall with each assisted breath. The doctors had said the next 48 hours would be critical. All we could do now was wait and pray. Alisha hadn't left his side, her hand constantly clasping his, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. I couldn't bear to look at her, the guilt gnawing at me like a physical pain. As the night wore on, Exhaustion finally overcame Alisha, and she fell into a fitful sleep in the chair next to Nathan's bed. I stepped out of the room, desperate for some air, some escape from the suffocating weight of what I'd done. In the quiet hallway, leaning against the cold hospital wall, memories flooded my mind. I saw Nathan as a little boy, gap-toothed and grinning, proudly showing me a frog he'd caught. I remembered him as a teenager, awkward and unsure, coming to me for advice about his first crush. And then I saw him at the military gala, his eyes shining with love as he looked at Alisha. What had I done? How had I become this person, so blinded by my own prejudices that I'd nearly destroyed my brother's life? A soft voice broke through my spiraling thoughts. He's going to be okay. He has to be. I turned to see Alisha standing there, her face etched with worry, but her voice steady with determination. Alisha, I began, but the words caught in my throat. How could I possibly explain? How could I ask for forgiveness when I couldn't even forgive myself? But Alisha just shook her head. Not now, Sarah. Whatever it is, it can wait. Right now, Nathan needs us both. Her grace in that moment shattered what was left of my defenses. Tears I'd been holding back for days finally broke free, and I found myself sobbing, sliding down the wall to sit on the cold linoleum floor. To my surprise, Alisha sat down next to me. She didn't offer empty words of comfort or try to tell me it would all be okay. She just sat there, a silent presence, as I finally confronted the ugly truth of what I'd become. In that sterile hospital hallway, with my brother fighting for his life just a few feet away, I made a vow. When Nathan recovered, I would make this right. I would face the consequences of my actions, whatever they might be. And I would do everything in my power to heal the damage I'd caused. The road ahead would be long and painful, but for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't too late to change, to grow, to become the sister Nathan deserved and the person I wanted to be. The days that followed Nathan's accident were a blur of hospital corridors, hushed conversations with doctors, and endless cups of terrible coffee. But amidst the worry and exhaustion, something unexpected was happening. Alisha and I, thrown together by circumstance and shared concern, were forming a tentative bond. It started small. A shared look of relief when Nathan's vitals improved. A quiet word of encouragement when one of us was flagging. Slowly, the wall of mistrust I had built began to crumble. On the 5th day, as we sat in the hospital cafeteria, picking at bland sandwiches, I finally found the courage to speak the words that had been choking me. Alisha, I need to tell you something, I began, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked up, her eyes wary but not unkind. What is it, Sarah? The words tumbled out in a rush. I told her everything, my initial discomfort, my manipulations, the lie that had led to Nathan's accident. With each confession, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders, even as shame burned hot in my cheeks. When I finished, I couldn't bear to meet her eyes. I waited for the anger, the disgust, the rejection I knew I deserved. Instead, after a long pause, Alisha spoke softly. I knew. I looked up, startled. You knew? She nodded. Not everything, but I suspected. I could feel your disapproval from the moment we met. And Nathan, he was so torn, loving us both but feeling like he had to choose. Her words were like a knife to my heart, but she wasn't finished. What I don't understand is why, she continued. Why were you so against us? It was the question I had been dreading, the one I had been avoiding even in my own mind, but I owed her the truth. I was scared, I admitted, the realization dawning on me even as I spoke. Scared of change, scared of losing my little brother to someone I didn't know or understand. I thought I was protecting him, but really, I was just protecting myself. Alisha nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. Thank you for being honest, she said finally. I can't say I forgive you, not yet, but I understand a little better now. It wasn't absolution, but it was a start, and it was more than I deserved. From that day on, something shifted between us. As Nathan slowly recovered, Alisha and I formed an unlikely team. We tag-teamed his care, shared meals, and even laughed together over Nathan's terrible hospital jokes when he was finally well enough to make them. I threw myself into making amends. I called our parents, confessing everything and begging them to give Alisha a chance. I reached out to Nathan and Alisha's friends on base, organizing a welcome home party for when Nathan was released. And most importantly, I started the hard work of examining my own biases and preconceptions. It wasn't easy. There were days when old habits tried to reassert themselves, when a stray thought would make me question everything. But each time, I forced myself to confront these feelings head-on, to challenge them, to grow beyond them. The day Nathan was released from the hospital was a turning point. As we helped him into the car, weak but recovering, he looked at Alisha and me with a mixture of love and confusion. "I don't know what happened while I was out," he said, "but I'm glad to see my two favorite women getting along." Alisha and I exchanged a look, a wealth of unspoken understanding passing between us. "We had a lot of time to talk," I said, squeezing his hand, and I finally opened my eyes to what was right in front of me all along. As we drove home, the three of us laughing and talking, I felt a profound sense of peace. The journey wasn't over. There was still much to heal, much to learn. But for the first time, I was excited about the road ahead and the person I was becoming. The day of Nathan and Alicia's wedding dawned bright and clear, a perfect June morning at Fort Bragg. As I helped Alisha with her dress, my hands trembling slightly, I couldn't help but marvel at how far we'd come. "I never thought I'd be here," I admitted, smoothing down the delicate lace of her gown, helping my brother's bride on her wedding day. Alisha caught my hand, squeezing it gently. "I never thought I'd want you here," she replied with a soft smile, "but I'm glad you are." The ceremony was beautiful, a blend of military tradition and personal touches that perfectly captured Nathan and Alicia's relationship. As they exchanged vows, I felt tears prick my eyes, overwhelmed by the love radiating between them. But the true test came during the reception. As the maid of honor, it was my turn to give a speech. I stood, my heart pounding, acutely aware of all the eyes on me. Many of the guests knew the rocky history between Alisha and me. This was more than just a wedding toast. It was a public declaration of my change of heart. I took a deep breath and began. When Nathan first introduced me to Alisha, I made a terrible mistake. I saw their differences before I saw their love. I let fear and prejudice blind me to what was right in front of my eyes. Two people who complement each other perfectly. The room was silent, hanging on my every word. I continued, my voice growing stronger. But Alisha, in her infinite grace, gave me the chance to learn and grow. She showed me that love isn't about sameness, it's about balance. It's about becoming better versions of ourselves because of each other. I turned to the newlyweds, raising my glass. "Nathan, Alisha, your love story isn't just about romance. It's about perseverance, forgiveness, and the power of love to overcome any obstacle, even a stubborn older sister." This elicited a ripple of laughter from the crowd. "To Nathan and Alisha," I concluded, my voice thick with emotion, "may your love continue to change hearts and open minds, just as it changed and opened mine." As applause filled the room, I caught Alicia's eye. She mouthed a silent "thank you," her eyes shining with tears. And in that moment, I knew that the journey we had been through, painful as it was, had led us exactly where we needed to be. The weeks following the wedding were a time of profound change and healing. Nathan and Alicia's love had not only survived the storm I had created but had emerged stronger. Their relationship became a beacon of hope and understanding in our community, challenging long-held prejudices and opening hearts and minds. As for me, I threw myself into making amends. I volunteered at the base's cultural diversity program, sharing my story as a cautionary tale and a testament to the power of change. It wasn't always easy. There were uncomfortable questions and skeptical looks, but each conversation felt like a step in the right direction. One sunny afternoon, as I was helping Nathan and Alisha move into their new home off base, Alisha pulled me aside. "Sarah," she began, her voice soft but firm, "I want you to know that I forgive you, truly." I felt my throat tighten with emotion. "Alisha, She held up a hand, stopping me. "Let me finish. What you did was wrong, and it hurt us deeply. But the way you've worked to make things right, to change yourself and help others change, that takes real courage." Nathan joined us, wrapping an arm around each of our shoulders. "You know," he said with a grin, "I always dreamed of my two favorite women getting along. I just never imagined it would happen quite like this." We all laughed, the sound lighter and more genuine than I could have imagined possible just a few months ago. As we stood there, surrounded by moving boxes and the promise of new beginnings, I realized that this journey had changed all of us. Nathan had found the strength to stand up for his love. Alisha had shown incredible grace and forgiveness, and I had learned that it's never too late to open your heart and mind. Our family had been tested, nearly broken, but we had come through it stronger and more united than ever. As I looked at my brother and his wife, their love palpable in the air between them, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy. There would still be challenges, still be those who didn't understand or approve. But I knew now that love, real, honest, open-hearted love, could overcome any obstacle. And I was ready to stand beside Nathan and Alisha, championing their love story and the powerful message it sent to the world. Well, folks, that's my story. It ain't pretty, but it's real. If you've stuck with me this far, I reckon you might have found something worth hearing in all this mess I made and tried to clean up. Now, I've got a question for y'all. Have you ever done something that hurt someone you love, thinking you were doing the right thing? How did you make it right? Share your stories in the comments below. Who knows, your experience might just help someone else who's struggling. Remember, as I learned the hard way, the heart has reasons that reason cannot know. Sometimes, love really does conquer all, even our own stubborn minds. Thanks for listening, and I hope you'll stick around for more stories of love, redemption, and the crazy journey we call life.